This one's going to be a long video. I'll structure it and put the structure in the description if you're interested. And now let's get going. For a long time, I felt really frustrated because, I just couldn't get the hang of why would I be able to change habits so quickly sometimes. And sometimes it just felt like I was dragging, I was just not into it, I wasn't motivated enough. So it was kind of strange. How come sometimes I could be so great and consistent and instantly change something, and sometimes it would take me months to finally change, even the tiny habit. So I've read a few books about the topic: Atomic Habits from James Clear, The Power of Habit from Charles Duhigg, The Growth Mindset from Carol S. Dweck, and other books. And here are the 10 things I've learned about changing habits for the better. Number 1, motivation is absolutely key. That's been proven by science. If you're not motivated, it's going to be super hard to make you change your habits. Be it about eating, be it about quitting smoking. I can go there, I can be your coach, I can encourage you, foster you, whatever. But if you're not intrinsically motivated, it's just going to be too tough, and likely you will not keep this new habit in the long term. So what to do? Motivation is a strange thing, and very often I want you to think about two types of motivation. Very often when people want to motivate you, they tend to show you a vision, something great, and you get so motivated that you start. All right, this can work sometimes. So for instance, you have this image of your super fit body, or you have this image of yourself being super successful at your business. And so every day you are going to work 1 hour a day on your objective. Okay, that works sometimes. But you know what works even more than that? It's actually fears. And that's why I want you to think about what do you fear will happen if you don't change. So, for instance, if you take today and you wanna, let's say, start training every day for 1 hour a day. That's a lot, by the way, I think. But anyways, you wanna do this, and the thing is, why? Because you have this positive vision of yourself that in 3 years you'll be super fit, you'll be able to do triathlons, marathons, I don't know what your objectives are. You will look great, feel great, and you will no longer be out of breath when just having a hike with a few friends. That's one positive motivation. On the other hand, you could look at yourself in 3 years' time if you don't change anything. So you don't start training and you look at yourself 3 years' time from now, much likely your situation will have worsened. So the gap between you and your friends when hiking will have worsened. You will be even farther behind. You will maybe not even be able to walk up, for 1 hour or something on that little hill. And you will maybe have a bigger belly from drinking too much beer. I don't know, I'm just not making assumptions, but and you will maybe start having pains, back pains, any health issues, because you're not moving. So think about these fears that you can have. It's absolutely crucial that you think about the pain of not changing. The pain of not changing is going to be a stronger motivator, because we as humans are strange creatures. We prefer, to be reminded of our fears. It's kind of a stronger motor for us to change rather than thinking about the positive. It's sometimes a good motor and motivator, but sometimes it's just not enough. I can give you one example, and a true life example, my example. For a long time, I definitely wanted to eat healthier. I think the first time I actually consciously really wanted to eat healthier long term was when I was about 20 or 21. And what happened back then is I think I was more interested in becoming fitter, but I also understood that rationally it was really important for my body that I eat healthy. But, for a long time, it was not enough a motivator until I started having chronic pains and, health issues that doctors could not explain, and that the only person who could relate to my problems was actually my grandma, who, by the way, had the same issues around the same age and had ended up having an intestine cancer with 40, right? So that's a thing I realized one day when I went to the doctor and he asked about past history in my family, and I was just beginning of my 30s. And then I told him that, and I think it was like a shock when I realized that I had to dedicate more of my time and energy into eating healthier in the long term, because the consequences could be really, really bad. So I started kind of cultivating this fear, but in a positive way, for me to have a strong enough motivator to stay course long term. And why it's also very important, because kind of motivation and your reasons for changing something, they're important for you, but you also very often have to formulate them for people around you, because kind of your people around you are kind of a big part also of, you know, maybe sometimes not helping you change habits and actually pulling you backwards. And when they clearly understand that the reason why you want to change is strong enough, they likely will support you. And that's also very important. So that was number one about motivation, and fears are stronger than wishes. So use them to your advantage. Now, number two, it's about habits and identity. And clearly there is a chicken and egg story in that situation. What do I mean by that? Actually, I think it's in the book from James Clear, Atomic Habits. One of the chapters is actually called, you know, habits shape your identity, and vice versa. So basically, if you take a snapshot of yourself today, maybe for instance, you drink coffee every day, and you think you're not a morning person, hence you need to drink coffee every day. But it's maybe certain type of habits that pushed you into this belief and this identity of yours. Let me explain. So maybe you're someone who really enjoys a good movie, and you've pushed it a little bit too far. Now you keep watching your screen, be it a movie, a series, or any YouTube videos, like right now. And it's already 11 p.m. or midnight, and of course after that you will have trouble falling asleep. That's no rocket science, right? And then you don't have enough sleep because somehow you have to get up really early to get to work. But you know, you don't feel like it because you didn't have enough sleep. So you think you're not a morning person, but really it's your habits that kind of give you this feeling and shape your identity. If today you were to stop watching TV or any blue screen time at, let's say, 9 p.m., and you would be to go to bed around 10 or 11 p.m. and fall asleep in time so that you have your full 7 or 8 hours sleep when you get up in the morning, all of a sudden, maybe you would stop being not a morning person. Maybe you would have energy in the morning. Maybe you would not need your coffee anymore. And it would only take 1 week, 2 weeks to kind of slowly shape your new identity. And your brain will realize that maybe there's a conflict here. How come all of a sudden I'm able to get up early and to have energy? Maybe this is not me. Maybe it's just a set of habits and I can change them. So both are really intertwined. If you change your habits, your brain thinks of yourself as a different person because you just changed. And, you know, vice versa. If you start, you know, putting more energy into seeing yourself as the new person and cultivating the belief that you can become that new person, then most likely you will be able to shift your habits better. And I think it's really important to know this, because when you want to change a habit, please think about your identity. How do you see yourself? And does this identity conflict with who you want to become? Because if it does, you will kind of work on it to understand better what's happening, to go deeper in order to kind of, let's say, clear some blocks out of the way. But I have another full video about that topic that you can watch here if you're interested. And now let's move on to the third thing I've learned. So number 3, smaller steps lead to greater results. So change is really progressive and you shouldn't beat yourself up. The thing is, when you are going to change your habits, it's like this romantic story that we all have in your heads that, tomorrow I am going to start doing yoga every day. And all of a sudden, tomorrow you do it, and 1 day, 2 days, 3 days pass by, you do it, and then all of a sudden you quit. But the thing is, that's not how it works. Changing habits is a trial and error process. The sooner you understand that, and the more you embrace, the process, and the better you will become. And the thing is, it's much better to start with smaller steps. Why? Because you have this identity going on in the background, right? So it will be difficult to force a whole new identity onto your brain and to change all of your habits at the same time. It's really better to start smaller, do something like 5 minutes yoga every day, and then all of a sudden you feel like, oh, I'm a person who does yoga every day. And maybe it's not much, maybe it's only 5 minutes, but I'm changing. I'm now the person that does yoga every day for a month, 2 months, and then you can start stepping up a little, but just be going a little bit more with your intuition and your feeling. And if you do it in a too brutal way, chances are you're gonna quit altogether, and this will in turn kind of cultivate the idea that you're failing. But we're gonna talk more about failure later on. So I'm just gonna leave it at that. Start smaller because it's easier and it will kind of ease your way into your new identity and build a stronger foundation. So number 4, be strategic and very, very selective. I want to talk a little bit about keystone habits here. It's a concept mentioned by Charles Duhigg in The Power of Habit. And what he really means are, all these habits that if you change just that one small habit, as small as it may be, and it will have a huge ripple effect. So for instance, it's been proven that if you make your bed every day in the morning, you will tend to be much more productive and get more stuff done during your day. This is strange, right? Like just making your bed, it can't be such a big deal. But somehow it puts you in a state of flow, starting with one really easy habit that kind of cleans your environment. And that's what I want you to be looking at from now on, keystone habits. The thing is, keep in mind that some keystone habits, they could seem like keystone habits to you, but maybe not to someone else. Like for instance, for you, maybe it's a big deal to bring out garbage every day at night, for instance. And if you do that, you feel so well because you feel like you've kind of cleaned stuff in your apartment, the energy is clear, and then you can have that great evening that is somehow, full of hobbies and good time. But maybe for someone else, bringing out the garbage is not a big deal and it's like not gonna change their life. So you have to know yourself best and you have to figure out which habit you think will really change your life. It's the same, for instance, with getting up really early. There's like this almost an urban legend, I would say, that you get super, super productive if you wake up really early, like maybe 5 a.m. I've watched a video from Matt Davella on the topic and I thought it was really to the point that for him, when he was doing that, it was just massively cutting the amount of sleep that he needed. It was not good for his rhythm and he just ended up, being super tired and not so productive. So he just sticked to waking up at, I don't know if it was 8 a.m., which for me is quite late, but I'm a morning person, so who am I to judge? You have to know, sometimes we tend to want to reproduce habits because we've heard that they're so great from others, but they don't fit us. So yeah, try it out, but figure out if this habit is going to have a ripple effect. And I'm going to give you just a few examples. For me, those keystone habits would be doing a little bit of yoga every day. Why? Because when I do this, instantly my body feels better, my posture is better, and it, you know, like I'm more straight with my back straight. And this is scientifically proven. Check out Jordan Peterson. It's scientifically proven to, you know, make you happier, more confident, and a lot of really positive things in your life. So yoga is this, but it also like kind of strengthens my body. I can feel that my back is much more supportive for me when I'm sitting or walking around. It has a lot of ripple effects. When it comes to meditation, for instance, it's also a keystone habit for me. It makes me more quiet. I'm able to kind of, you know, go back and look at my life with a better perspective, better understanding. I'm able to analyze stuff better, and I'm kind of able to experiment a lot of things. I think that much more things seem possible to me. So meditation is another big ripple effect habit that I have. What's the one for you? I'd like to remind you to be very strategic and be selective. So when I say be strategic, it's best if you can pick a keystone habit that is also quite easy for you to do. Maybe it's just brushing your teeth after dinner at night, because maybe kind of it makes you stop eating and then it makes you like want to do something nice. I don't know. Something simple, selective, that will have a ripple effect. And let me know in the comments if you want which habits are keystone habits for you. I'd be really interested. All right, so number 5, goals are great, but systems are much better. Yes, I think this is an idea from James Clear's book Atomic Habits. And the thing here is that I actually always loved to have goals and challenges, really. You know, like next month I'm gonna run a marathon, and next month I'm gonna do a triathlon, and next month I'm gonna watch no TV, or this year I'm gonna go a year without sugar. That's great. I think that goals are still great because goals can give you an indication. They can be a short-term kind of trial period for you to see whether a habit fits you or not, because just like we've said before, changing a habit is a very subjective, personal thing. I cannot tell you which are the habits that will have the most impact on your life. You have to figure that by yourself, my friend. So that's the thing. Goals are here to do this. Do a goal. First of all, will you fail? If you failed, what did you learn from it? And second of all, if you kind of liked it, what are the bits and parts that you can build into your life as systems? And that's the very important part. If you feel like there's a goal that kind of brought you so much that you kind of want to incorporate bits and parts of it into your systems, do it. You know, if you've done a challenge that was meditating 2 hours a day for a month, and it was awesome, but you also felt like it was a little bit too much because it cut on your social life, it cut on sleep time, some things like that. But it was so amazing that you gotta now think about a way to incorporate it into your daily systems and routine. Such as, okay, when I get up, I brush my teeth and then I meditate for, let it be 10 minutes. And when I want to go to sleep, I put on a sleep meditation and I meditate again for like 10 minutes. Find the systems that will work, and this will bring you much further than your goals, because in the end, that's what James Clear would say, that you fall back to the level of your systems. So whatever you have as a routine, whatever you have as daily habits, those are your supportive systems. If you've trained yourself well into doing this on autopilot, there's good chances that even in difficult times, you will at least stay on that level. So work on those. Okay, number 6 now. Know thyself. And what I mean by know thyself is one of the very powerful things, and I'd like you to listen very carefully. It's scientifically proven that habit reflection, so the fact that you reflect about your habits and how you function on autopilot, is one of the key components that will help you change habits. So in other words, if you want to kickstart your ability to change habits in the long term, you gotta be able to observe yourself, analyze yourself, and understand your habit cycle completely. A quick reminder about what a habit cycle is. Number one, you have a cue or a trigger. So for instance, if we're talking about my habit of eating a cookie, well, my habit or trigger could be that I feel a little tired. I haven't slept so well, I'm under a lot of stress, and kind of all of this makes me want to eat a cookie for sort of a relief feeling. So that's my cue or trigger. It creates, number two, a craving. And this craving is kind of my energy boost and, you know, all these little good hormones that come from eating some sugar. Then, as a reaction to this craving, I have the response, number three, which is what do I do? I eat the cookie. And number four, I kind of have like the satisfaction of this I have the reward. So I feel better, I have more energy again, I have this little sugar rush, and I can function again and work again, and yes, super. So that would be an example of a habit cycle and how you can, you know, reflect on your habit. And it's super interesting and important. Why? Because me eating a cookie may be a totally different habit cycle than you eating a cookie. Why? Because maybe you get triggered by eating a cookie for different reasons. Maybe you get triggered by eating a cookie because you feel sad, and that's a different situation. Or you feel triggered by eating a cookie because you just see it, and every time you see a cookie, you normally eat it. So that's an easy trigger. And then when it comes to the craving, maybe your cravings are different. Maybe I wanted the sugar rush, but maybe you want to just have a break in the afternoon when you're working, and you just want to have a break and go out and chat with a colleague or something. There's actually a video where I talk a little bit about that with Charles Duhigg's own experience in The Power of Habit. He's talking about that, about this cookie habit and what it meant for him, and how he did the whole trial and error, you know, process to find out what his habit cycle was. So he was perfectly trained in this habit reflection, and I invite you to dive deeper in this different video of mine if you're interested to know more about that. But learn to observe, analyze your habit cycle, because you need that in order to move forward, because you kind of need to replace the reward. You know, you kind of have to find a substitute if you want to be successful quicker. But in order to do this, you gotta know thyself. All right, number 7. Once again, please listen really carefully, because just like number 6, this is one that really will kickstart your ability to change your habits in a lasting way. So number 7 is make plans and be really specific. So what do I mean by that? You know, you've done all your work, you're like really motivated, you've analyzed your habit cycle, and now you know how you function, and you also know what you have as a plan, kind of, you know. But the thing is, very often you tend to be too vague with the plans. For instance, if you want to stop eating that cookie, maybe your plan is just like, well, I'm just not gonna eat the cookie tomorrow. Well, first of all, bad plan. If you don't have a justification to tell me that you're just gonna stop eating the cookie, I'd really like you to make a specific plan of what are you going to give yourself instead of the cookie? So how are you going to substitute it? And like, what are you going to do, but exactly? It's not enough if you tell me, instead of the cookie, I'm gonna have a walk. No, okay. So when exactly, you know, so is it exactly when you have the craving of the cookie that comes up? Will you have a walk, but where exactly? Will you be walking around the block? Will you be going to some coffee shop, getting a little coffee. Like, I want you to be really precise here. And that's because you want to change something that runs on autopilot in your brain. That's difficult enough. And if you're not being clear enough in what you'll be doing instead, then chances are that your brain will kind of stay lazy, or it will not be fast enough to react. If you have to, you imagine you're in that situation. You start craving the cookie and you don't have a precise plan on what to do now. You will not have the time to craft a plan now. It's too late, because kind of your brain runs on autopilot. The craving is too strong now, and you just gonna head for the cookie and say, all right, I'll do it tomorrow, because it's too much effort and willpower at this moment to actually think about making a whole new plan. So you gotta think about that in advance and be really specific. It's the same if tomorrow you wanna start running. Please don't just say, okay, tomorrow in the morning I'm gonna start running. All right, it doesn't work that way. You have to be super specific. First of all, what exactly are you going to do? So if you're going to run tomorrow morning, don't say, I'm just gonna run. No, I'm going to have a 5-minute run at a slow pace. Okay, that's precise enough. Or I am going to have a little high intensity interval training session for about 20 minutes. That's precise. Once again, you have to be really clear about what you're doing and be exact about that. So number 2 in that process is, when exactly are you going to do it? So telling me that you're going to start running tomorrow in the morning, that's not enough. You have to tell me, okay, tomorrow I am going to get up, wash my face and then brush my teeth. And right after I brush my teeth, I am going to run for 5 minutes at a slow pace. That's precise enough. You're going to be really precise with when you are going to do it. You can also say, I'm going to do it at 6:30, and then you have to make your plan and set your alarm clock so that you're consistent with your plan, and you do it at 6:30. Otherwise, your brain will have doubts about you doing it. So be consistent with your specific plan. And number 3 is, where exactly are you going to do it? So when it comes to running, you can't say, I'm just gonna go out and go for a run for 5 minutes. If you know your neighborhood well, please think about which route you are going to make. Even better if you knew the route already, or the day before you want to start your habit, maybe you go around the block and have a walk, and so you know exactly which route you want to make, because that again is part of your very specific plan. All right, number 8, make your environment fit your needs and not the other way around. There is this myth around self-discipline and willpower. Willpower is definitely something, you have it, it gets depleted over the course of the day. You can also kind of train it, but it definitely has limited resources. But what's really interesting is that when researchers studied people who seemed to have a lot of self-discipline, what they realized was these people were actually the people who were using least of willpower and the least amount of self-discipline. Why? Because they had crafted their environment and their routine in a way that they weren't tempted, or that they were automatically led to do the positive habits. So make your environments your friends and not your enemy. For instance, if you wanna, eat healthier, hide those cookies. Better yet, put an obstacle in the way. Like if the cookies are not only hidden, but even put in a place where they're a bit difficult to access, then you will be less likely to eat them. And on the other hand, if you want to eat more veggies, if you do prepping meals, if you cut a few veggies and you have them there to snack, and you put them in front of everything else in your fridge or on the counter, then you will be much more likely to eat healthy. So make your environment your friend. Number 9, please learn to embrace failure and practice self-compassion. So failure is a big one for me. I have another video diving deeper into that. Please check it out if you're really interested in that topic. For a long time, I didn't exactly know what failure was. I used to have pretty good grades forever, and I did a really good uni, and I had a good career, sort of. So I wasn't used to failing. I didn't really know what it was, and I just saw it as this really bad thing that you don't want to happen. Until at some point I started like quitting all this and trying to go my own way. And since it was my own unique way, it was more difficult, you know, to kind of find a way to go in my direction without failing, because, you know, finding out what direction my direction is kind of a trial and error process by itself. And especially since I've started to dive a little bit into entrepreneurship, it's being entrepreneur without failing. It I don't know if it ever happens, maybe, but I think it's the least cases. So failing is super important, especially if you want to change your habits, because most of the time you will try and implement something, just like this little story I told about Charles Duhigg and his eating cookie habit. You need to know that failure is part of the process, and you actually want to embrace it and take it as a game. So if tomorrow you want to start running, make a specific plan like I told before, but try it out for that one day, and then observe exactly, do this habit reflection that I was talking about, and if it didn't fit you well, reevaluate and make a specific plan for the next day. Failing is amazing, and be self-compassionate when you fail. Everyone fails, and failing is actually something really important in the growth process. Failing is something that Carol S. Dweck talks a lot about in her book, The Growth Mindset. And the thing is, failing only becomes bad if you don't learn anything from it. And I'll tell you something, if you don't embrace failure and you see failure as something to avoid at all costs, and you are not self-compassionate with you when you fail, then you will have more of a tendency to kind of block it all out and not learn the lesson from your failures. So that's why I would highly encourage you to, right up front, from the start, you embrace failure and you don't see it as a problem, you see it as your ally, because you're learning a lot from it. Don't block it out, make it your friend, and you will progress much quicker, just like people with a growth mindset. And you will tend to not repeat the same mistakes, because you will be able to look at your failure and realize like, I was mistaken. I took it from the wrong angle. So now I'm able to react to it, and I make a specific plan to react to it. And if I fail again, I learn something different. All right, so number 10 to conclude is not the least important at all, is actually really important. It's believe or fail forever. It sounds dramatic, but it's kind of important. It gets back also to this idea of your identity. You need to believe that you're able to change. That's something really interesting that they talked about when they discovered that as a study about Alcoholics Anonymous. The program was being very successful, and there is a few things that they were doing really right when it came to changing habits. But what they couldn't figure out for a long time is how it came that some people were able to stay non-alcoholics forever, and others were systematically falling back into the habit of drinking as soon as they were confronted with any major event in their life. And what they started realizing is that the people that were able to have faith and cultivate the belief that they could change, miraculously change and become a ex-alcoholic person forever, they managed to stick to it to the long term. So that's why when you want to change your habits, you gotta work on your belief that you can change. And it's also interesting that this could explain why it's so important to surround yourself with people that support you, but even better so, people that are maybe already where you want to be. So if you want to quit smoking and you find 3 or 4 friends that have managed to quit smoking in the past, it likely will increase your chances to succeed in the long term. Not only because you're surrounded by people who understand you and kind of don't smoke, which is great by itself, but also because you see that it's possible. You can see right away that some people are making it, and you have to work on your self-belief. Believe that you can change, and you will be able to change. So that's it. Those are 10 things I've learned about changing your habits for the better. I hope you liked the video. Please subscribe if you want more of videos on the topic, and leave a comment to let me know if you have anything more that is really important that you learn about changing habits for the better. See you in the next video. Bye!